Where we question everything, no favor. Welcome back to MidPoint. Former U.S. Senator from Florida, now chairman of the Gunster Law Firm, head of the LeMieux Center for Public Policy at Palm Beach Atlantic University in Florida, George LeMieux joins us. Let us get right down to the former president, Jimmy Carter. Barack Obama dropped the ball on the ISIS threat. Really, Mr. Former President, you want to go ahead and drop this bomb now?
So you got to think that the people in the Obama administration are like, of all the people we don't want to hear from,
the
is
hawk,
Jimmy Carter.
or the true dove, I'm
right.
sorry.
And, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, Carter has been a very difficult former president to deal with because he goes around the world, starts trying to negotiate with terrorists and interject himself in foreign policy, deals with governments that our government won't deal with. But it's sort of, if Jimmy Carter is saying you've got a foreign policy problem, it really underscores the point. The president admitted on a 60 Minutes interview that we messed up. We didn't follow the intelligence. The intelligence wasn't good enough on ISIS. And Carter's right. We have a real problem. Hopefully, what we're doing now will stem the tide. But I've always thought that the president made a huge mistake by limiting himself in the beginning by saying we would, under no circumstance, put boots on the ground. One, that's kind of not true because there's a bunch of special forces on the ground. But two, we got to do whatever we need to do to get the job done.
But does Carter, even at this stage, damage Obama and damage the Democrats coming towards the midterms? Does it really have a big impact?
I don't think so, because I think people have stopped listening to Jimmy Carter years ago.
Except, of course, Roslyn, of course, who still has to listen on occasion. Let's get down to the president now talking about policies. I want you to hear a soundbite. Our audience will hear it too. This is the president talking about his policies and the fact that he's not up for election. I'm told we don't have it, so we're going to go ahead. The president said, "I'm not on the ballot this fall, but make no mistake, these policies are on the ballot. Every single one of them." Could you then, like so many others, see the Democratic strategists across the country going,
yeah, every Democrat running for re-election, except for maybe Charlie Crist in Florida, who is running to Obama, every one of them cringed because they're doing everything they can to localize their elections, to make it about their state, to make it about them, and not make it about Washington and Barack Obama. That's why no one will appear with them. That's why no one will campaign with them. So when that comment comes out and says, my policies are on the ballot, Republicans jumped on that and said, that's exactly right, Mr. President. Your policies are on the ballot, and this Democratic senator voted for your policies 90, 95%, 99% of the time.
We then had late word that a lot of the money is now being shifted as well. The Democratic National Committee is shifting a lot of its advertising money now. They're going to the races that they think they can win, and they're kind of backing away from a lot of other races. They're shifting the money around. You talked about the panic button, that red button earlier, last segment. It is still apparent here. When you start shifting money around, what does that tell you? Are you trying to shore up? Are you giving up?
Absolutely. And if you're one of these Democratic senators in a state, say you're in Arkansas, you're Mark Pryor, you're 7 points down to Tom Cotton, and all of a sudden you find out that that $3 million that was supposed to come in to buy television the last 2 weeks is gone. So a lot of these races can be determined a couple weeks before the end when the money dries up because they're playing a chess game. They're trying to keep 51 seats in the U.S. Senate, or 50 because they get the tie with Joe Biden. They're going to put the money wherever they think they need to. Harry Reid's going to direct that money because they want to retain their majority.
Mary Landrieu is a 3-term Democratic senator. She's fighting for her life, and now she fires her campaign manager this close to the midterms. What does that tell you?
It's trouble. I mean, you never want to see a shakeup in a campaign. You really don't want to see a shakeup in a campaign a month before Election Day. She's brought in a previous campaign manager who helped her brother win the mayor's election in New Orleans. It's not like it's someone completely new, but the fact that you have to change the team that you have on the field because you don't think you're winning says a lot. Now remember, Louisiana is crazy in the way that they do their elections. They have this jungle primary. Everybody's in the primary together. If she gets over 50% in November, then she wins, but if she doesn't get over 50%, they have a December runoff after everybody else is done voting. So I have a feeling that she's not going to get the 50% mark, and probably her and Dr. Bill Cassidy will be in the final primary, or final election.
About a minute or so I have left. Going to put you on the spot now. Here comes a midterm election now, sitting from the Democratic side, because you always expect that something's going to come out of nowhere when you get this close. Is there anything you see that the Democrats might launch, that there might be a thread here that they might then go to try and pull back some of that support and some of those votes for the midterms?
Well, they're playing their familiar themes. They're talking about minimum wage. They're talking about women's issues. They're trying to run the playbook that they ran last time. Republicans in the last election and ones prior kind of offered up some statements that helped them make their case. There were some blunders, by Republican Senate candidates in the last campaign. That hasn't happened this time. The Republicans have been very focused, very disciplined, and they've been sticking to the issues of we don't want Obamacare, we don't want this much debt, we don't want to be weak around the world, and they've been focused on those issues, and they're playing very smart. So I don't think the Democrats have another arrow in their quiver that they can launch at this point. The goal for Republicans is don't screw up between now and Election Day. Run a good race, block and tackle. Voting has started in most places around the country by absentee ballot, and early voting will start soon. Get those votes in and win.
Stay the course and don't vacillate. How's that?
Sounds good.
That'll do it every time. George,
Ed,
thank you so much for coming. Always a pleasure. We'll see you again soon. Later on this hour, hear what happens when someone has a little less real life and more passion about something as simple as a college football game. And after the break, the yes means yes discourse and the insertion of something as simple as common sense. That and so much more coming up right here on MidPoint, where every day we question everything.